Hey, welcome back to the Old Gravy Podcast. It's been a while, but it's good to be back with my producer, Joe, and I got a really good guest today. And I'm just going to throw out what we're doing here today, and then I'm going to tell you who my guest is and why he's perfect for this show. Today, it's post-election, and there's going to be a little bit of a reality check in the show. Like, everyone's kind of pumped up, everything that happened in the election. Everyone is optimistic about everything. We might bring you down a little bit because my guest will be able to tell us, what's coming down the road. What are the pitfalls? Where are the landmines? So we're going to be discussing a little bit about that. And we're also going to have like a fantasy football draft. We're going to look at the cabinet. It's like preseason. These are the guys that Donald Trump has drafted for his team. And I'm going to go over that list with my guest, and he's going to kind of outline, who's going to be able to play, who can score, who can win. And we're going to take you through that at first, and then we're going to get into a bunch of other stuff because that's what we do here on the Old Gravy Podcast. So my guest today, you know him. He's been on the show before. His name is Rich Zeoli. He's from WPHT 1210 AM in Philadelphia. You would know him from, he's a regular guest on Fox. He substitutes for Mark Levin. He's a regular on the Cooking with on the cooking show, Cooking with Reagan.
Cooking with Reagan.
So you're expanding your
my horizons. Yeah.
Not all politics. You're doing the
and that's catching on fire.
I know.
Really
It's a great show. I just started looking at it recently. Great show, and I hope that works out for you. I look at it though. You're not even a guest host. You're more of a stagehand out there.
Yeah, it's really her show.
Yeah, that's good. But hey, listen, you got on the show. That's great.
My 4-year-old Italian chef.
So here we are. We're here with Rich Zeoli from Philadelphia. He's the conservative talker in Philly. He's going to kind of help us navigate all this election stuff. But I want to bring up before we get into it.
Yeah.
On election day, you get a call from Donald Trump.
Yes.
And I believe it's the last media call that Donald Trump does the day of the election. People are still going to the voting booths, and you get the call. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was crazy. I had a guest on, and my producer said, we need to wrap. And it was my buddy, Brianna Lyman from The Federalist. And I said, Brianna, I have to let you go. I'm not sure why. I got to let you go. He said, Trump's calling in. Now, at first I thought, what, like Donald Trump Jr. is calling in? He's like, no, the president is calling in. I said, okay, he's been on the show in the past, but we weren't expecting this, obviously. And it was supposed to be at 6 o'clock. And then it was 6:15, 6:20, 6:30. It was like, he's coming. Finally, 6:40, he jumps on the phone, and he called in. He said, what's going on in Philadelphia? I said, people are pouring out for you. I said, the turnout's going to be great, because he was worried he was hearing stories about corruption and the Democrats walking around with these badges and everything. So I was able to reassure him he was doing really, really well. And it was great. And he said to me, he goes, I hope your ratings go to 0, because I hope everybody stops listening and goes out to vote. That'd be a great thing.
That was a historical call.
Yeah.
Like literally the day of the election, you get the president of the United States.
Yeah.
But you were the PA guy. I noticed that on Fox News. You were following, the show's based in PA. You got a lot of local listeners from there. So you had kind of the heartbeat of what was going on with that electorate over in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity for us, for me, for my station, because here we are in the must-win state. We all kept saying whoever wins Pennsylvania is going to be the next president of the United States. Trump said it too. And so, everybody was talking about it. And then we had the recount with McCormick and Casey.
Yeah, that kept
going on. And so it led to more TV appearances.
No, you were up to your neck in that, too.
It was good, yeah.
Wow. Great for ratings.
Yeah.
Great for everything. I mean, that you're part of that. Actually, you're playing a part in history, which is kind of cool. Like someday someone will look back at your grandkids will look back at that tape and say, wow.
Well, you know what's funny about it, Tom, is that I said to him, Mr. President, tell everybody who's waiting in line to stay in line. And he said, okay, if you're in line, stay in line. Afterward, my producer was busting my chops and saying, you realize you just told the president what to do, right? And you didn't even say please.
Right.
You just said, Mr. President, tell everybody who's staying in line to stay in line.
Well, you know what? That's like you were both out. You're on the field. You were in the game.
That's right.
There's no. You're just barking what needs to be done. Let's get this
Run
win.
the nickel defense.
There you go. Did you feel good about it with Pennsylvania, since that was a critical state? When you woke up that morning, were you like, we got Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I knew we were going to win. I really did. I knew we were going to win Pennsylvania. What I didn't want to do was appear overconfident leading into the election. And I always believe in politics, there's two ways to run, scared or unopposed. And that's it. And so even the days in, as people were talking about a landslide, I just kept saying to the audience, I am not going to predict anything or predict a landslide, but I knew.
Right.
All the metrics were there. The numbers were there. It was all there. But what I was worried about was people getting out to vote. And then the other factor I was worried about were people staying in line to vote for hours. I mean, like our mutual friend, Mike Floyd, who waited in line to help deliver the popular vote, which was great.
Yep.
Things like that matter. And so but I didn't want people to say, the hell with it. This line's 2 hours. They're going to rig it anyway. They're going to cheat, which is why leading up to that, we made such an effort. Laura Trump, RNC Chairman Michael Whatley, coming on the show over and over again. Linda Kearns, the RNC, to tell everybody this election's going to be secure because we didn't want a self-fulfilling prophecy to occur after 2020.
Absolutely. And I even, there was some of that attitude among Republicans that no matter what I do, it won't make a difference. That wasn't true. But you know what? You guys. You did a good job. I mean, you were in the heart of it, which is pretty cool. And the fact that you're here at the Old Gravy podcast to talk about it is even better. And I got to do a quick sponsorship. Today's show is sponsored by Plaza Grande. If you're not 55, you'll wish you were. This is luxury living located at the Garden State Park in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. That's the old racetrack for anyone in the Philadelphia area in New Jersey. What a great place to live. If you want to live in a maintenance-free country club lifestyle, you look no further than the Plaza Grande in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Luxury amenities where everything you need is just minutes away. Locations. Restaurants, retail shopping, grocery stores are right there. It's all at your fingertips. Swimming pools, take a stroll to nearby stores, tons of activities, pools, movies, mahjong, bingo, you name it, they got it. It's the perfect time to make your move. Get 1 month free on an 18-month lease or 2 months free on a 24-month lease. For more information, head to PlazaGrandeCherryHill.com. Once again, that's PlazaGrandeCherryHill.com. Even though you're talking to presidents, you can't get into Plaza Grande. You know why?
I'm not 55.
You're not 55, no. But you wish you were.
After that live read, I wish I was.
There you
go, baby.
There you go. But anyway,
mahjong.
Have you driven by it at all?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great spot and great for retirement living. So let's get into the preseason. This is like our, for political junkies, this is like our fantasy football.
Oh, yeah.
But before we do, and I want your opinion on this, the Department of Justice, okay, the department in itself. I think a lot of people don't know what the Department of Justice. I'm just going to give some of the basic facts, and then I'd like you to kind of comment on what you think of the Department of Justice, what it's been doing, and what it should be doing. So everyone who's listening, the Department of Justice, their main mission is to protect the rights of Americans. That's their main job, is to protect your rights as Americans. So part of the agencies that roll up under the Department of Justice is the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, the U.S. Marshals, Federal Bureau of Prisons, all the U.S. attorneys you always hear about. They're out prosecuting cases on behalf of the federal government. So that's, I would say that's the core. Another thing they have, which I want you to comment on too, Rich, is they have an Office of Justice programs. That's where they hand out tax dollars for community safety, promote civil rights, increase access to justice. But you know what? My guess is it's a huge piggy bank, and it goes to certain groups of people that might not be looking out for protecting Americans. That I just have a feeling about that. I don't know much about it. It's actually, I never knew that they had this Office of Justice program. It does make sense because they probably hire a lot of police officers when they say, we helped hire so many police. So Department of Justice, what's been going on there? Where is it going? We'll go from there.
All right. Well, So main justice, as they call it, which is D.C., and the upper echelons of that has become a weaponized agency against the American people and the political opponents of not just this administration, but the deep state, the federal Leviathan, whatever you want to call it. They've weaponized this. Let's think about going back to 2016. You had Lisa Page, a DOJ lawyer. You had Peter Strzok, who was an FBI agent. The two of them working in tandem to promote the Russia collusion narrative against Donald Trump. Within the Department of Justice and the FBI, they were pushing this narrative at the very same time they were purposely clearing Hillary Clinton. You remember James Comey coming out and saying no reasonable prosecutor would pursue this. The Department of Justice has been completely corrupted. The FBI along with it at the top. I mean, all the various layers down below. And, there's an agent right now in the field. We're not talking about that guy. We're talking about what happens in Washington. And they've weaponized this agency. And this has become the key thing for when you look at Trump's appointments so far. What he's looking to do is to take the swamp, so to speak, take the deep state and literally turn it over and shake it and expose all of what they've been doing against the American people, from the spying, which we don't even know the full extent of since it was first revealed to us by Edward Snowden, to how they've gone after political enemies and how they've protected their friends, people like Hunter Biden, for example.
Yeah.
And so all those efforts that have happened, and that's why Pam Bondi being nominated for Attorney General and Kash Patel being nominated for FBI Director are so threatening to the deep state, along with Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence, because these agencies have been working in tandem. And we know that because in 2016, when they briefed President Obama about the Russian dossier, the agencies coordinated with that to give this dossier legitimacy, and then the media ran with it. So they're all in on it together.
Yeah, and when they do that, if you're associated with Trump, and you're supposed to be protecting the rights of Americans, everyone in that topography is pulled in. And they were pulled into court.
Yes.
They all had a lawyer up.
Yep. And hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal bills.
Yeah, the legal bills. Like, I mean, you get a lot of these people they're not super rich people. No. They're working within government, trying to help Donald Trump. And next thing you know, they're getting pulled in. They need to write a check for $50,000 retainer just to start.
Yeah.
So the DOJ got off mission, protecting the rights of Americans. Sounds like they got off mission. So let's talk about Kash Patel.
Yeah.
So I think he's a great American story. Now they're kind of acting like Donald Trump pulled him off of Long Island, where I heard some jokes that the Patel motels that he was a front desk clerk that they pulled. This guy has a big resume. He's a very big resume. He was on the U.S. And I want people to know this, because what you're hearing in the media isn't who this guy is. He was on the U.S. Security Council, advisor to the director of DNI. He was the chief of staff for the Secretary of Defense. He did legal work in the DOJ on terrorism. Know what else I liked about him? He was a defense attorney. Yep. In both civil in the state at the state level and the federal level. And there's something about prosecutors, and it's not a personal thing. I know prosecutors, I like them personally, but prosecutors sometimes have Chris Christie was a prosecutor, but they have sometimes a very narrowed view of the world.
Yes.
Like they're not, and I've heard this, I don't know if it's absolutely true, and this is why I like Kash Patel, because he's been on the other side of the defense, where government can screw you over. You can go to jail. You can get poor representation. So I like the fact that Kash Patel he's been on that other side, and I think that's a positive for him. Matter of fact, if we have a tape, and we're gonna play it of Kash Patel, I'd like you to comment on it.
Guys, footprint has gotten so freaking big, and the biggest problem the FBI has come out of its intel shops. I'd break that component out of it. I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops. You're cops. Go be cops. Go chase down murderers and drug dealers and violent offenders. What do you need 7,000 people there for? Same thing with DOJ.
Okay.
What are all these people doing?
I think we got the gist of it, that's for sure, what his intentions are. And I want to remind everybody, this is a guy with experience within these federal bureaucracies. He's not from the outside. He knows what goes on. What do you think?
I think he's a pick that terrifies the deep state. Look, the deep state is very real. Anybody who doubts that has not been paying attention the last 8 years of what's been happening in this government. But it goes even back to Frank Church in the 1970s, warning about the encroachment of the FBI on Americans' civil rights and constitutional rights. So your point about Kash Patel being a defense attorney, the problem is that so often if the government wants to get you, the government is going to get you, right?
Yeah.
And so the Constitution, they don't look at that as an obstacle. Great example of this is this guy, Mark Houck in Pennsylvania. So he's praying outside of an abortion clinic in Philadelphia, and he allegedly gets into a tussle with somebody. Larry Krasner, the district attorney in Philadelphia, declines to prosecute because there was just no there. But the United States Department of Justice goes after him. The FBI raids his house on a Sunday morning, drags him out. He's treated like a terrorist. And they basically say to him, cop to a plea, you only have to serve 3 years. So he goes to trial, and the jury acquits him. But putting him through that nightmare for a lot of Americans, and then the threat, the thought of I may have to spend 10 years of my life in prison, I'll just sign a plea agreement. The Office of Civil Rights, which you said earlier, Tom, has been there to protect the civil rights of the American people. The woman who runs that is a lunatic, and she has been targeting Christians. Remember when the FBI, there was a Virginia office, they were writing on the license plates of people who were at Latin Mass?
Yep.
They have been targeting Catholics. They've been targeting Americans, moms who go to school board meetings, domestic potential violent extremists. They have been targeting people for exercising their constitutional rights. And so the deep state has the power now to bring down a president. I mean, they brought down Donald Trump.
Oh, no doubt.
What they did by covering up the Hunter Biden laptop, then when the FBI knew it was real, they brought his presidency down. Had the truth come out, we don't know for sure, but I think it would have affected the outcome of the election. The deep state was successful. They tried to stop him in 2016. They tried to undermine his entire presidency, and then ultimately they were successful in bringing down a president. And then they tried to stop him from becoming president again by prosecuting him relentlessly. Most people would have just said the hell with this, but that's not who Donald Trump is.
Yeah. He kept fighting. I want to go back to the abortion case.
Yeah.
So, and I want to make sure I have the right case. He lived in Bucks County.
Yep. Yeah.
He lived in Bucks County. There's a video. So my understanding, this is like to kind of personalize it for the listeners. He is with his young son, and they are literally a block away, almost, 100 yards, whatever the legal space you have to be when they're doing it. One of the people that work at the clinic who actually knows him and I want to make sure it's the right story. He comes up to him and starts talking in his kid's face.
Yes.
And he says, enough is enough. The guy keeps talking at his kid, so he gives him like a one-arm shove, then the guy falls down. Now, for doing that, he has the FBI SWAT team, and he's got 6 or 7 children, come in and literally terrorize that family.
When he offered to voluntarily turn himself in.
Yes.
His attorney offered that he would surrender.
That's how it used to be done.
And he's a nonviolent offender.
Yeah.
It wasn't, he's not like they're worried about a cache of weapons and drugs and, gang members in the house. But that's what they do to send a point.
Yeah, they're sending a message.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Once again, off mission again. You're supposed to be protecting Americans, not scaring the shit out of them.
Right.
And I could only imagine how I want to humanize this, how horrifying that was. And what you said is they could have called his lawyer. His lawyer said, yeah, we'll be down on Wednesday. Yeah. But, I've heard FBI agents talk about that. They used to always call the lawyer and say, but this SWAT team thing, this is the politicization kind of in your face.
Big black SUVs, guys in vests, tactical weapons, long guns, pointing them at the family, terrorizing them to send a message. And that's what the government does. And so they prosecute you, and they don't give a damn if they lose. They don't care. They lose, they lose.
They throw you into the system and let you do whatever they're going to do.
But the message has been sent loud and clear. Don't F with us.
And I know there are FBI agents, and they have been whistleblowers that they don't want to even go on these SWAT teams. Some of these guys have said, this is ridiculous. We don't need to pull this old lady who walked through the Capitol on January 6th.
Oh, that's a whole other area.
Yeah, that's all. But that kind of mentality they have, and then they're using it to send a point, like you said. That is, anyway, that's what we're up against with this DOJ, and that's why we have Kash Patel coming in to kind of change the culture. That's really what they have to do, change the culture. I thought this was going to be interesting, and it kind of goes down along the line with the Justice Department. Gates becoming the Attorney General. So what I was kind of like, well, I don't think he'll get in. That was because you just thought of the obvious. Who's not? These guys are all looking to cover their ass, and a lot of them don't like our politics who have R's before their names.
Correct.
They really don't like us. They have more in common with the other people than they do us. And we could probably sit here and name names of guys in the Senate and the House who do that, but we're not going to do it. What I thought about Gates, I wanted him to at least get into the hearing because I thought it would have gotten really personal. And in the sense, he would have started naming names when they were saying, you did this. And he had the sexual, the investigation that he paid for sex with an underage woman who was 17, but the Department of Justice dropped those charges. I don't want to dig too much into them, but that case. But remember, the Department of Justice, led by Joe Biden and his team, they dropped all charges. So that tells you something. But I thought it was going to be. Are you a fan of The Sopranos?
I love The Sopranos.
Yeah. So
come on.
Zeoli,
how could I not be? Stop.
Dumb question. So I thought, you remember when Christopher was doing the drugs and the family did the intervention?
Yeah.
Can we play a little bit of that, Joe? Do we have that? A little bit of a clip of that?
You're weak, you're out of control, and you become an embarrassment to yourself and everybody else.
Oh, listen to you.
Guys, whoa. We said non-judgmental.
Fuck that. Let him take his medicine.
Seriously, Paul, you want to talk about fucking up?
Watch it, Chrissy.
Why? I thought we're being honest here. You got some balls, you know that?
All right, we could play this all day.
Dre DiMatteo is the best, right? Christopher.
And then he goes on to start calling Tony. You're talking about self-control?
Yeah, look at you fat.
You eat everything. You have no control. So I kind of pictured the Gates hearing where people were expecting it to be, but he's a bomb thrower, right?
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of saying, well, if that goes on, he's not going to throw like philosophical bombs about the law. He probably doesn't have that type of back. Well, he's a lawyer. I heard he's smart, but the bottom line, I think he would have started calling names. Who is doing illegal day trading? Whose settlements for sexual harassment came out of the Senate? Like, who are you to judge me? I think it might have been a very entertaining Sopranos intervention that blew up. At the end of that scene in The Sopranos, they all start kicking the crap out of Christopher.
Right.
They start beating him up. So I kind of thought that's where the Gates hearing would have went. So I'm a little disappointed we didn't get to entertain ourselves. But anyway, we're going to be right back, and we're going to start playing fantasy football on Trump's picks in about 1 minute. Thanks. Hey, it's the Old Gravy Podcast. Welcome back. I'm here with Rich Zeoli from WPHT. The Big Talk is on from 3 to 7, Monday through Friday. You can also catch him on the Odyssey app, correct?
Yes, the free Odyssey app.
Yeah, so you can listen to him anywhere. I remember listening to you over in Japan. I was on like a family vacation. I'm on the treadmill, and I'm like, oh, my God, I can't believe I'm listening to Rich Zeoli
We're
in Japan.
international, baby.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I remember it well. So, we mentioned a mutual friend before, but he's threatened me never to mention his name on the Old Gravy
You'll have to
Podcast.
beep it out.
Yeah. Or he would, he's a constitutionally, he's an attorney, he'd look to destroy me. But he did have a question for you.
Yeah.
He says, what federal department does Rich think Trump will get closed, if any?
Yeah. If any, it would be education.
Yeah.
That would be the one. That's kind of the low-hanging fruit in terms of agencies there. I think first of all, I think Doge is amazing, and the Doge father, Elon Musk, and Vivek Ramaswamy, the two of them together working on this is probably the most exciting thing, and the real chance they have to fundamentally transform government. So Vivek was on my show during the election when he was running, and he talked specifically about how you can get rid of these bureaucrats. Like everybody says it, they're like, faceless, nameless bureaucrats. You hear these words thrown around, but he actually brought up the process by which the president can get rid of these people who are so powerful and work within the deep state. There's multiple layers of this government, but clearly the executive branch is what we're talking about, and it's out of control with the rulemaking process that they do, and the Chevron decision goes a long way towards that. But it would be also nice to think about how you can consolidate agencies too. Like, do we need to have a Department of Energy, a Department of Agriculture, a Department of the Interior? I mean, that's a lot of redundancy there, and an EPA. There's a lot of redundancy. Can we consolidate some of those and wipe people out? And that would be great, because in the last 4 years, the only sector that has really seen growth is government.
Yeah,
honestly, not the private sector.
Yeah, there's something I heard. There's like 435 sub-agencies.
Yeah.
Another thing I found interesting is that during COVID, all these thousands of people, like if you said no one goes to work in DC, 7% of the offices, I don't know if that statistic is correct. I heard a number like that. So if you said, okay, as of March 1st or April 1st, every federal employee has to report back to the office, just like a lot of Americans are doing. These people have sold their homes and have moved out of the Maryland, D.C., Northern Virginia area.
Yeah.
You could probably cut staff right on the first day, 20%, because they can't come back to work.
Yeah.
And I know this sounds cruel, or I don't really care. It's weird if you're a federal employee. I've had friends who've been laid off for companies. I've had friends' parents laid off. That's part of life.
Yeah.
Like, why? Because you work for the federal government that you're guaranteed life employment, and you can't get laid off or or fired. They don't fire anyone.
No.
So listen, and there are a lot of, I have friends who work in the federal government. They're good people. They work hard. But listen, they're in the same game as all as my other friends. So if you do get laid off, or you do get fired or furloughed, whatever it is, that's part of life. There's no guarantees, and the federal government shouldn't be giving these guarantees.
No,
and I'd be all for it. So Department of Education is the one you go for.
Look, I mean, it's basically a giant redistribution agency. That's really what it does. It takes money from the states and then it just redistributes them. Every state is capable of setting their own curriculum standards. But the one thing that you could do with the Department of Education in the short term, because it would take an act of Congress to get rid of it, is you could have them go in there and undo a lot of the woke crap that they've put in place in the last 4 years, specifically with Title IX, which is really dead on arrival once President Trump takes office in January. It's dead on arrival now in the courts, but he will kill it officially on January 20th. The attempts to rewrite Title IX to say, biological men can use women's restrooms and play on the sports teams and everything like this. You have a chance to go in there and undo a lot of the woke stuff, woke curriculum and other things like this. But in this day and age, like I asked Dr. Wilfred Riley about this, and I said, well, you're in Kentucky. Will the kids in Kentucky learn reading, writing, and arithmetic without the federal Department of Education? And he laughed. He said, I don't know. We'll see. What state can't figure out the curriculum standards for their own kids? That's right. It's 2024, 2025. But the other aspect of it, too, is can you use the Department of Education to push forward a school choice program in the short term before the agency is shut down? And then you could close it down on July 4th, 2026. That would be pretty symbolic.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to pick up on the Secretary, the Education Department. So in Florida, when I moved, I'm living both in Jersey, but I'm now a Florida resident. I'm mostly in Florida. Yeah. You're not going to believe this. Parents start telling me, because I sent my daughter to Catholic high school down there, and they said, well, you got to apply for the scholarship program. It's really a voucher program. That's exactly what it is. I'm like, yeah, there's probably some prerequisite that you can't, income, assets, or whatever. I don't know. They're like, no, it has nothing to do with that. Make a long story short, the tuition bill is about $19,000, and I got $9,000. Now, my understanding is every time someone sends their kid to private school and accepts that payment, which goes right to the school, the system, like New Jersey could never do this. It's so easy. You go on a website. I just can't tell you how easy it is. Next thing you know, the high school's sending you a credited bill. What they send you the
Sounds
big bill
wonderful.
credit.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wonderful. And I actually think every time a kid opts for that, the state saves money. So I don't understand, because to educate a kid in a Florida school costs X. So if you pull a kid out and it costs you $9 for him to go to any private school, religious school, whatever school you put, they're saving $5,000 every time.
Yeah.
So the argument that it's going to take away all the resources and the money, that doesn't make any sense to me. Every time a kid opts out, what it does do is going to reduce the need for teachers.
Yes.
And really, public schools are not about the product of servicing kids, teaching them to read, write. It's about hiring teachers, paying more people, building up, teacher union funds. It's a total ripoff. The bottom line. So I would love to see the Department of Education. I'm so surprised with the way Florida does it, and it makes economic sense for the taxpayer. Every kid that doesn't go to the public school, you're saving more money in the Treasury Department of that state. So it's really good. Let's go through a couple of the other selections that are coming up. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. What do you think of him?
Outstanding pick. Smart guy. Trump knows him well financially. I think he'll get through. He'll sail through. No problem there.
Yep. No, what I thought was interesting, and no one talked about it for the first 2 days. He's gay. No,
See, they didn't even know.
No one said anything about him being a gay American, being the first.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. We always have to push the Seinfeld disclaimer, right?
It's like So Trump, Rick Grinnell, director, was director of Intel. No, they only want to talk about Pete Buttigieg,
right?
But this is a big deal, and Trump should get kudos for it, just like the Democrats get kudos for it.
Yeah, but he won't.
No, of course not. The media didn't.
He'll be described as a self-loathing gay. That's how they'll describe him.
Yeah. There's something wrong with them. They got to figure out what's wrong with them. It's unbelievable. So let's go to the Secretary of State, Mark Rubio.
I mean, I'm not excited about it, but I think it gets him out of the Senate, clears the way, and we'll see how long he lasts as Secretary of State. But Senate courtesy, he will get through without any issues. I just think he's a swamp creature, and he's too pro-war for me.
Yeah.
Is this a 4D chess to get rid of Rubio? Could be.
And it is true what you just said, that everyone's thinking that everyone that's going on this team is going to be there for. No. This is like the NFL.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is the owner of the NFL. He's Jerry Jones. You're not playing. He's cutting you.
Right.
You're not doing what he wants.
Yeah. Well, he owned a league. Remember, he owned the
USFL. Herschel Walker.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he's used to.
He may recruit just to bench a player.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah. So everyone losing their mind over any of these cabinet picks. If they don't do what Trump, but we're saying the truth. The truth is, if they do what Trump wants them to do, that's why they're against them, because they don't want people that are actually going to, the people elected Trump, he's going to put his policies out there. They want a cabinet that's going to do what the last cabinet, you had some disgruntled, it was just the elites. The Republican elites worked hand in hand. We know.
Yeah,
we can
and
have a whole show on that.
He learned exactly, the problem with that was.
So DNI, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, what do you think?
Well, I love her personally.
Yeah.
I do. She's been on my show a number of times. I've gotten to know her personally. I think she's a wonderful person, the right person for the job. Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Army Reserve. She's amazing. But most importantly, is she's a believer in the Constitution. She was a Democrat. She saw the light, like Trump, who was a Democrat at one point, like Reagan, like other people, like Congressman Jeff Van Drew. But she's on the TSA Quiet Skies program. I mean, they're literally profiling her every time she flies, even though she enlists in the military after 9/11. So she understands the spying that our government does. She's very, very much against that, very pro-Fourth Amendment. You need a director of national intelligence who's willing to go to the president and say, Mr. President, you're never going to believe this, but these agencies are spying on the American people in the following manner. What we've learned with the Twitter files with Matt Taibbi and the other people who put it out, we don't know the extent of how much the government is spying on its own people, and I think she's going to expose all that. However, that being said, she's going to be the toughest one to get through.
You think so?
100%. They're terrified of her. They're already seeing, she's a Russian propagandist.
Yeah, she's a Russian agent.
Yeah. It's all bullshit. She's not in any way, shape, or form.
And
but
then
they lie.
Then the Syria thing.
Right. and they lie about her. And the truth is, we were funding we were funding Al-Qaeda in that war in Syria, which she exposed that too. And they don't like that. She's going to face the biggest challenge. And there's 4 Republican senators. For every time we bring up a problem, it's going to be the same 4.
Yeah.
It's Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and this new guy from Utah, who's basically, the other Mitt Romney now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
no, they are the 4.
They're the 4.
You know what? I like the way she explained how she went from becoming a Democrat, and I don't even say it a Republican, to become a Trumper, because I really feel I'm more of a make America great first, regardless if Trump is there or not there. My belief is all decisions are made what's good for America, not for Trudeau, but I'm also I'm also a businessman. If it can be good for them and good for me, I'm in.
Great, everybody wins.
And it's common sense. But she explained, and I think this is true too. She grew up in Hawaii. And I think she is Hawaiian or Samoan, and she was a Democrat because the history of the Democrats, there was a lot of oppression from landowners, and you kind of gravitated to be a Democrat in Hawaii. And Hawaii, it's a state, it's part of the country, but it's so far removed. It operates culturally and historically like its own country. And she actually said when she got to Washington, her perspective of what the country was and what it really was, there was a big conflict there.
Yeah.
And she even noticed that when she wanted to speak up because she had been in 2 war zones, the Obama people loved her. They were bringing her to all the events. They were showcasing her. But she said once she raised issues about putting troops, we'd just been through Iraq, Afghanistan, been through hell about putting troops in Syria, going into areas we don't belong. And the people that put you there have no skin in the game. Literally no skin in it, because it's not their kids. It's not kids. It's not even their kids' friends, because they all go to these expensive private schools.
Right.
They had no relationship to it. So I totally get the flip that she made from being a Democrat and becoming a Trumper. So let's get to the Department of Defense. Pete Hegseth.
Yes.
Did I pronounce that right?
Hegseth, yeah.
Yeah, Hegseth. So what do you think?
I think he's great. Look, he's a guy who he's served our country. He's been in combat. He's been awarded for his heroism in his combat. Bronze Star, I believe. What the biggest problem with the military-industrial complex right now in this country is that the people that profit off of war drive the Pentagon. And then the people in the Pentagon want to be on the boards of Raytheon and Lockheed and all that. So you have this, much like with the FDA and Big Pharma and Big Food, it's this revolving door.
It's the future career.
Yeah, exactly right. So everybody's trying to greenlight everything, knowing that they're going to cash out at the end of the day. And so the soldier in the field will be the one who gets in trouble. Jack Carr, the author, who you know Jack Carr, the international best-selling author of the James Reese series, who was a Navy SEAL, and he said this best. He said, the soldier in the field who does something, that's the guy who will get in trouble, not the person who gave the order at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And so what Pete Hegseth has been doing has been fighting for the guy in the field.
Yeah, the grunts.
The grunt who have been given the orders and then faced the prosecution for something that some guy back in Washington ordered of them. And that is also a major problem that I think he will clear up. It'll be a battle. Ultimately, I think
you think he'll get in.
I do, but it'll be a battle.
And so I think where they're going to attack him is on the Me Too stuff.
Yeah, right.
And you know what? The guy's cursed in a way. He's an Ivy League basketball player. He looks like a movie star.
Yep.
And you know what? The guy probably has a lot of women in his life because life's about opportunity. You know what I mean? If you look like him, there's going to be more women that engage you. And
and we all want to be him.
Yes.
Deep down inside.
Yeah. The same thing with Donald Trump with all his problems. It's easy to be, 30 pounds overweight laying on your couch watching the Eagles. No one's talking to you. No attractive women are walking up to you at the bar. But now they come out with a private email, and I like to get it out there because it's going to come out. So there's a private email his mother sent them. Are you familiar?
Yes,
Of course you are.
You're being a bad boy. You know.
And that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's basically you're going through women. It says, I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. You are that man. This is just a mother's advice that could be given to your college son.
Sure.
It could be given to your son who's living in New York City as a Wall Street broker, or he's a professional athlete or whatever. And she is so humiliated, the mom. That shows you, like, it shows you how despicable they are. But that's politics, so we got to get used to it. But
the bigger problem for him with the women thing is that he opposes women in combat.
yeah,
This is all a cover for the fact that they don't want him there. The defense industrial complex doesn't want him.
Yeah.
It's like if they wanted him, none of this would be coming out or no one would give a shit. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You bring up Tulsi and how they were on the team.
Yeah.
Think of Senator Menendez to bring it local.
yeah.
Everybody knew the guy was a crook.
Yeah.
But it's only when he crossed them on the Iran deal
That's
that
when they come after
you.
him.
Right. So if Hegseth was going to just keep the endless wars going and make everybody rich, they'd be,
He'd be in.
he's a playboy. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
The women in combat thing will be the excuse that Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski used to vote against him. But I still think he'll get in, even if J.D. Vance has to break the tie.
You know, and I don't want to have, we could probably go into women in combat. I personally, in supporting roles, maybe even in dangerous areas, maybe even flying a fighter jet, but in confined quarters with men out in the field, men and women out in the field, that's a disaster.
Yeah.
That is a disaster. And I don't care. I'm not looking to.
Like they'll put Tammy Duckworth, who's the disabled a war vet she will grill him and
But
go
was she
after him
combat? Was she in combat, or was she driving down the road in a supply truck?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know enough about
But
her.
I mean,
to
the
say,
common
but
psychological sense of putting young people.
Yeah.
And you know how many pregnant women come off Navy ships? They say the number is astronomical.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking like hundreds or whatever, but who cares if it's 5 or 10 when they do a deployment?
Yeah, but the good news is a lot of the sailors less syphilis now because they're not going to the dirty
Into the
women in the
ports.
ports. Yeah, so
all right.
you gotta weigh pros and cons.
You're
I'm
being
just
reasonable. That's a
trying to
reasonable
be
assessment.
Tom,
Okay.
come on.
All right, let's go to Pam Bondi.
Yes,
What do you think?
love her. She's
Attorney
great.
General.
Yes.
Okay.
I have her cell phone number. We texted a lot during the campaign because she came in to help with the Protect the Vote effort in PA. She's phenomenal. She's great. She's got energy. She's a decent, good person. I hung out with her at the Union League in Philadelphia, genuinely caring. She's a fighter. Florida. Yes. And she will go in there and she will restore the balance to what the Department of Justice needs to be, but at the same time, expose what it has become. And that's what needs to, and she'll work in tandem with Kash Patel if he gets through. I think she will get through without question. She's accomplished Florida Attorney General. She will definitely get through. She'll be confirmed.
I'm going to bring up another clip. Now, this isn't a cabinet position. This is the press secretary.
Yes.
And you know what? I have her name
Caroline Levitt.
here. You got it.
Yeah.
And she's 27 years old. And if our producer could throw that up for us, that would be great. I'll let you have a minute there, Joe. I'm going to bring up another name on the labor secretary. This is what I found in Lori Chavez. She is she's for the PRO Act, which is a proposed bill that seeks to make it easier for workers to unionize. Very un-Republican.
Very.
Yes.
Yes.
And that shows you Trump is not your traditional Republican.
No, not at all.
I'm personally against any public unions. Public unions, I don't think you should. If you work for the government, there's even FDR was against that. But I'm a big believer if it's private sector, because those guys have screwed the private. I did a whole show on Wall Street and corporate America, which has gone so woke. So I'm anti-Wall Street, anti-corporate America. I used to be pro all of this.
Yeah.
But once I saw what the elites do when they get in there, shipping all our manufacturing. So I like that Trump picked her. I think that's interesting. She's pro-union, hopefully in the private sector, not the public sector. Bring it on. We need a little bit of that. So I think that's another good pick. Producer Joe, we ready for that clip?
Assassination attempts on President Trump's life that by the grace of God, he was able to escape and he is here with us today. So yes, President Trump knows a little bit about political violence because he's experienced it himself. And talking about the tragic realities of war that Liz Cheney and her father, Dick Cheney, have got this country into is not political violence. It's talking about the reality of the foreign conflicts that the Washington, D.C. establishment have sold out young Americans to for decades.
Okay. Basically, the question was from the ABC News reporter accusing her that she's now going to be working for, well, not at this point because she's just working on his campaign, but saying that Trump is going to promote political violence against his enemies who came after him. And unfortunately for our listeners, you can go find it on the internet, but his new press secretary is 27 years old. She just lines.
Well, that captures, I think, which is, I think we're going with it. She's a fighter.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's going to fight like hell. Caroline and I've gotten to know her. She's terrific. She's wonderful. She's been on my show.
I thought I heard you mention her. Yeah.
Yeah. More times than I can count. I was rooting for her the entire time. She is a bulldog.
Yeah.
That's what Trump needs. He needs somebody who's going to go out there and battle.
When I looked her up and saw that she was 27,
ran for Congress.
I was like, wow. Well, anyway,
she's a fighter, and that's what Trump likes.
Yeah.
Trump likes people that are going to go and
you need it because she is the front line against the media, the mainstream media. That's who is breathing down her throat every day. So she'll be punching back. That will be great. Commerce Secretary is Howard Lutnick.
Yes, the best. Love this guy.
You know what? I am so glad you said that. And I want to tell our listeners a little bit about Howard Lutnick. He kind of, the way he's kind of a brash looking New Yorker guy and that's a negative right from the start for a lot of people out in the hinterlands or in the Midwest or not familiar with that kind of New York kind of gravitas. He got a bad rap after 9/11 because he lost his brother. He lost 658 of his 960 employees at Cantor Fitzgerald on 9/11. His whole company was literally wiped out. And 2 weeks later, he's still grieving his brother. Word gets out into the press that he's not going to pay his employees, the families. And he basically said, I don't have the money. So they kind of made him out to be a villain. Like, it's funny. Every bad thing that happens, there always has to be a villain. I remember after 9/11, they tried to make him a villain. But this guy's no villain because what he promised the families is they would get profit sharing in the future. And he designed a company before most brokerage companies did on Wall Street. He designed an electronic platform, and then he had the hands-on using the brokers, and that was with all those employees. Thank God he had that electronic brokerage side because that was the future. And he was able to give the families $180 million. And he's still donating big money to charities. Once a year, he gives all the profits. But this is a guy that lost both his parents to cancer at a young age. By the time he was a freshman, and his dad OD'd on chemo. Not his fault. They gave him too much.
Wow.
And it killed him. And the family, he kind of helped raise his brother and sister. He was at Haverford College at the time. They gave him a scholarship because he was such a good student. But I find this guy really interesting now. I had that thing from 9/11 that he might not be a good guy when I heard they wanted to make him the Secretary of Treasury. What I'm telling people, this Howard Lutnick, read his biography. He's a good guy. He's done a lot of good out there, and he's working next to Trump. So the next one is the home. I'm so happy you said he was a good guy because most people have a bad.
He's good for that role because he makes it easy for people to understand things like tariffs, for example, and he's going to ensure that this tariff negotiation game that we're about to play here works out in America's interest.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of people, and we get the tariffs. People don't understand. They're leverage. They're your negotiating tool.
And he made a point too. We're still paying tariffs on things from Europe that were put in after the Marshall Plan. During the Marshall Plan after World War II. It's stuff that doesn't make sense.
It's like these guys, these elites who are in politics and know all the lobbyists. They don't want to upset their friends.
No.
It's like I bet it comes. A lot of it's based on personal relationships, and meanwhile. Average Americans getting screwed, but listen, I got to go to the cocktail party in Paris. I want everyone to like me.
Exactly.
Like the Paris Peace Accord. That does nothing for the vibe, but it makes everyone feel good at the cocktail party. Kristi Noem, the K9 killer.
It's a bad day to be a terrorist dog.
Yeah.
Bad day to be an illegal immigrant dog. What can I say?
Yeah. And she's been a governor. Let's see how it goes.
Been a governor. Let's see how it goes.
CIA Director John Radcliffe.
Radcliffe is terrific. Excellent choice. My frequent guest on my show, Victoria Coates, worked with John Radcliffe in the past. He's a guy that has been very outspoken against the spying on the American people and the CIA being used domestically against its own people. So he's another one that's going to go in there, disrupt this, and not only just get the agency back on course, but expose what it's done.
Okay. So there's so many here.
OMB director.
I don't even know if who is the OMB?
So the OMB director, who was the OMB director before, who was just on a podcast with Tucker Carlson, and now his name escapes me. So, but he's terrific. He's a really smart guy who's talked about the deep state again and how these agencies and have the ability to undermine the president from within. He'll realign the ship too. He's a great choice. So I think there's a lot of
this is like it's like a turnaround team for a company that literally has been selling poison.
Yeah,
it's back in a lot of ways.
You bring up poison. You want to talk about Robert F. Kennedy?
That's
for a
the next
second?
one.
I mean,
yeah. The Health and Human Services.
That'll be the other big battle besides Tulsi Gabbard. It'll be him. He's another huge threat to big pharma, big food. They have a lot of power, a lot of lobbyists. If there's two that I'm most worried about, it's those two. It's Tulsi and RFK.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
RFK. And I am so glad he joined the team. I thought it was.
Oh, it helped a lot, tremendously.
I thought it was great, the Maha thing. And it's funny, I went to the Trump boat parade down in Florida. One of the most unbelievable things I was on a boat. I was behind the Antifa boat that got sprayed. I'll show you the video after. It was great. I was right. You can see
that to me.
You can see the boat. I'm right behind it. But one thing, I am a little suspicious of Robert. I do like him. I like his personality. I like his attitude. But I do understand, and that's why I would not. That doesn't mean I wouldn't want him on the team. But he'd be the one guy I'd always keep a close eye on, because right before he went with Trump, he went to the Kamala people and said, "What do you got for me?"
Right.
And they basically said, "We got nothing for you." So then he went to Trump. And I always think if they had given him something, he would have been out on the campaign trail tearing Trump apart. I love that he's on it, but I would keep a close eye. I hope he gets through the nomination process. I hope that all goes well.
This is where you play the famous clip of Michael saying, "My father taught me many things in this room."
Yeah.
And one of the things he said was, "Keep your friends close and your enemies closer."
Yeah.
But I think having Kennedy on the team helped with the suburban women vote, because a lot of these moms are tired of all the crap that's in our kids' food.
Yep.
And they're tired of, after COVID and everything else. And also on the vaccine stuff, not that he's anti-vax, although they paint him in that way. This is where the left and the right kind of unite on this stuff. And they say, well, do we need 200 vaccines? They have to be all in the same time frame. And so, but he's a threat, a huge threat. So that's going to be one that we'll see.
They're going to have to fight for that one.
Yeah,
the other one, the Interior Secretary. Do you know, and before we get to Doug Burgum, the Department of Interior, that's where the Department of Education was originally.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was just a sub cabinet.
Yeah.
The reason I was reading a Grant book, so Grant started it and put it in the Interior. This is in 1870. But basically all it was to just make sure the kids were being educated. So maybe they just take the Department of Education as a compromise, roll it up under another department just as a processing
There you
house
go. Yeah.
to get the money out or whatever needs to go out. So Doug Burgum, what do you think of him?
Great. He's a big energy guy. I mean, that's an energy state, North Dakota. He's all about drill, baby, drill, and frack, which is what Trump's all about. Great pick, and he's going to be overseeing this energy council that's going to deal with national security at the same time. So it's a new way to look at Interior in tandem with energy, which I think is really important.
Yeah, I really like him, and I even liked him in the debates. But it's funny, it's fun to learn about people. So he's good friends with Bill Gates.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and I almost bought his software years ago in my business. It's called Great Plains Software. But Bill Gates bought Great Plains, which was better than QuickBooks, but it wasn't like one of those real expensive. It kind of sat in the middle as your business was getting out of the small business mode. So he actually sold it to Gates, became very good friends with him. So a lot of people on the right don't trust him. because of his relationships with Gates. Now, that was in the primary. I'm wondering if there will be someone brings up in the hearings. I wouldn't be surprised if his relationship with Bill Gates is brought up.
Could be.
But Democrats tend to like Bill Gates, but there could be a guy far on the right who's like, but like Massey or something will bring it up, but he's not in the Senate.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of these things, you got to pick your battles, and so the Interior is going to go to the committee, and it's not going to be that dramatic in terms of fireworks.
Yeah,
even if it comes up. So
next one, Education Secretary Linda McMahon. Yeah,
she's great.
Listen,
she's the reason why Hulk Hogan, has come out was at the RNC, and she's been longtime friends with Trump. Obviously built an empire, knows business. Was a great SBA administrator.
That's
under Trump.
right.
And she's going to do a great job of ultimately, I think, leading that agency into extinction.
And what Rich just said, they're going to try to make her out that she show clips of her wrestling. She ran, first of all, she's a brilliant business person. They ran it, like you said, an empire. And she ran the SBA, which is a huge department in Washington.
And helped a lot of people with their businesses, a lot of people.
The last one I'm going to ask you is the Environmental Protection Agency with Lee Zeldin. Any issues with him getting in? Or
no, Lee Zeldin is universally respected on both sides of the political aisle from being a member of Congress. And again, it's also that kind of courtesy of having been there, which they won't extend to Tulsi Gabbard, but Lee Zeldin will be fine. He's very, very close in Trump world. They trust him. They like him a lot. So I think it was inevitable he would get in. And then the other one is Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz, again, congressman in Florida. He's another one that I think will get confirmed. Very close with President Trump. And that is going to, Florida, your state's going to be a really interesting to watch.
It's well represented.
What happens when Rubio's seat is vacated and Waltz's seat is vacated, and then ultimately, does Byron Donalds run for Senate? Does he run for governor? Does Kat Kamak, who's a rock star, does she run for Senate? There's a lot of pieces on the chessboard here. Florida is going to be a state to watch.
Wow, interesting. So, hey, listen, if you're going to play political fantasy football, you bring in Rich Zeoli from WPHT, because this guy, he's a guy that can put, he knows the draft picks. There's no doubt about that. So, Rich, I want to thank you for coming out again. I'm sure you got to go do a show today.
I got to go do a show.
Yeah, so we got to let Rich go, Tom. And it was a lot of fun. I'll see you in a week. Thanks.
Disclaimer. The host assumes no responsibility or liability for any errors or omissions in the content of this podcast. The information contained in this podcast is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.